City University Television. In association with the Center for Advanced Study in Theater Arts. And the Harold Clurman Endowment. Presents Spotlight.
Welcome to the Harold Clurman Seminar on Theater. I'm Ed Wilson, and my guests today are two of the outstanding performers in America, Miss Ann Jackson and Mr. Eli Wallach, who in private life are Mr. and Mrs. Wallach. Ann, you started out with several acting teachers, Sandy Meisner of the Neighborhood Playhouse, Herbert Berghoff, Lee Strasberg of the Actors Studio. Looking back on it, how do you feel about the actor training you had? The things that were good about it, the things that maybe you wish had happened that didn't, or was everything about it wonderful?
It was in this order. It was that I started with Herbert Berghoff, and I was about 18 at the time. And Herbert got me a scholarship to the Neighborhood Playhouse, which I got, I'm sure, because he had talked to Sanford Meisner about me. But anyway, once I went to the Playhouse, I only stayed a year because I had economic problems. And
Did you know at that time that you wanted to be an actress? Had you already decided that was it?
When I was 4, I knew.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wish truly that I had had 2 years of Sanford Meisner instead of 1 year, because he is a very great teacher, and through the years I've seen the students who have had the 2 years training, and when I met Eli Wallach, he had had the 2 years training, and they were ahead of me in technique. I had to retrace, I had to go back and relearn a lot of things.
How did you do that?
Through sheer experience, you know, being thrown into the water and swimming or drowning. I was fired from, I did a play with Kazan because I had been recommended by Sanford Meisner, and I was fired from that. I had not a clue as to what he was talking about when he'd say prepare or, you know, do the work. I didn't, unless I was right for a part, I didn't know how to bring a character to a part. And I then trained with Lee Strasberg, and I think that I learned
well, obviously,
how to act.
Obviously you learned, but I mean, so it was as much experience as it was actually learning in a classroom as far as you were concerned.
Yes.
Because
it was a struggle for me.
It was?
Yes.
When did you feel you'd sort of gotten hold of it? Because you played a lot of parts when you were young, didn't you?
Yes, yes. I think that I think I finally got the hang of it when I did O Men, O Women with Eddie Chodoroff, and by that time I had already been in the theater for 10 years, working
Yes.
as an actress. Mind you, I'm not that self-critical. I think I was successful in parts that were right for me. That
you played Anya in the Cherry Orchard.
In the Cherry Orchard,
Wasn't that
yes.
almost your first thing?
That was my very first thing, and that was a good one. I think I did very well in that, considering my inexperience, but then I had the best people to work with. I had LeGallion and Margaret Webster, who was a wonderful director. I worked with very good people, and then I got, as all actors do, I got involved with not such good people.
But gradually, then, you really assimilated and accumulated all of this experience and knowledge, so that you were. What about you, Eli? In terms of training, did you you had those 2 years then at the Neighborhood Playhouse?
Yes, I'd come out of the University of Texas.
How did you happen to go? You grew up in New York, right?
I was born in Brooklyn.
Yes.
But tuition was very, very inexpensive in the 30s. Some of my classmates were John Connolly, Walter Cronkite, Zachary Scott, Elaine Steinbeck. And
this was all at Texas?
At the university.
How did you happen to go down there, though?
Because of the tuition.
Tuition?
Yeah. I couldn't get into City College. See, CUNY.
CUNY.
There was no CUNY at that time,
Right.
with CCNY.
That's right.
But I graduated from the university, and everyone in my family are teachers. So it was determined that I would become a teacher, and you had to have a master's degree.
Yes.
So I went to City College, got a master's degree, failed the history examination, and thought someone up there really loves me, and got a scholarship to the Neighborhood Playhouse. I spent 2 years at the Playhouse studying with Meisner, and graduated and said, "Broadway, here I come." And Uncle Sam said, "Just a moment." And there was a 5-year hiatus while I served in the Army for 5 years. When I came out, then I went to Broadway.
But I guess city colleges and history and education's lost then became the theater's game.
Yes, because I always wanted to be an actor. I
all
didn't want
along,
to be a teacher.
you really didn't want to be a teacher.
No.
And this was because of family pressure.
Yes,
You decided you had to give it a try.
yes.
Now, during the Army, were you acting at all?
No, I was a medical administrative officer. We ran hospitals.
For
Five
years.
years. Yeah.
That's quite a chunk to take out of your career, isn't it?
Well, there was a war.
I know, I know that, but
I wasn't going to say to them, "Listen,
I'm an actor."
I'm sorry with your war. I have to go on with my career."
What was the first thing you did when you came out of the Army?
I was in a play called Skydrift. I was the crew chief on an airplane. It all took place on an airplane. And all the plane crashes and all the men go back. They're dead and they return home. A cheerful subject for just 1946.
I would say yes.
And the play lasted a week. I didn't think I would last either because my voice wasn't loud enough to go over the sound of the motors. But the director, lighting the show, fell off the platform, broke his leg, and I was the only one that could keep his leg, as a medic, comfortable, so I didn't get fired.
What were you doing at that? Were you at this same time? Had you all met yet? When did
No.
you meet? When did you actually meet?
We met shortly after that, because the interesting thing was that the director who didn't fire him, who hurt his leg, was then my director for my Broadway debut, which was in a play called Signature, which was a dreadful melodrama. And then the woman who had seen me in that play and who had seen Eli in his flop wanted to do This Property is Condemned, the Tennessee Williams
Yes.
play, and she wanted to present me in it. And she then was sent Eli. Now, he lies about this, but I know this is a fact. He was sent for her. They were supposed to match up. And he came, and he was a soldier and very grown up, and I thought he was too old for the part, and I opened my mouth and told her so, because I'd been reading with juveniles who had done things like Junior Miss and
Sure.
I don't know what plays, Kiss and Tell. And Eli just seemed so grown up. I mean, he was a captain in the Army. I thought he was an older man, But anyway, she said, "Listen, Ann Jackson, she's from the South. You're from the South too, aren't you?"
Yes.
Yes.
Tennessee.
Yes. Well, Terry, where's Terry from? Terry Hayden.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. She's a Tennessean and a perfect lady and a wonderful woman, and we owe a lot to her besides our meeting in a play that she directed. She's always been a very loyal friend. She's a wonderful theater woman, and she was a wonderful actress.
And that's
too.
where we met.
And that's where we
In
met.
This Property is Condemned?
For
He
Equity
played-
Library Theater.
He played a 15-year-old boy, and I played a 13-year-old.
The one who's on the rail was balancing on the railroad.
On the railroad
On the
tracks.
railroad tracks.
Yeah.
It's a very moving play, actually.
It
but
is.
The Williams thing reminds me that Eli, you've done a great deal of Tennessee Williams,
So is she.
and both of you have.
Anne was in the original Summer and Smoke.
Were you really?
Yes, I played the Nellie Ewell, the little girl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In the first summer.
Then we
and
did a
Smoke?
tour of Glass Menagerie.
You did.
Yes, and I played Laura.
And when was the tour? And what were you? Were you the?
I played Tom.
You played Tom.
The
Which is
tour
a-
was when Catherine was
It's 20 years ago. Well,
More,
more.
more.
20 some odd years ago.
25 years ago.
And then I did The Rose Tattoo.
I knew you did the Rose Tattoo, and you did Camino Real.
And then I did his first film,
Baby Doll. Yes. Because so you've both between the two of you, you've done a great deal of.
Well,
Tennessee was like our godfather,
Really?
really. Yeah. He
2
was-
years ago, we went to the second annual Tennessee Williams Festival in New Orleans. And we did an hour and 15 minutes on Tennessee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just doing a poem, scenes from his plays. We did scene from Summer and Smoke, scene from Camino, and we told stories about Tennessee.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Well, then obviously you got to know him extremely well, working on all these plays then. And he must
Yes.
have... And, well, tell me a little bit about being in Glass Menagerie and being on tour. I mean, was it... And playing in it, in terms of the... You were playing Laura.
Yes.
Which is a wonderful part.
Oh, it's a beautiful part. It's a beautiful part. We were offered anything that we wanted to do. This was after we had more or less established ourselves as a couple in the theater. And we said we wanted to do the Glass Menagerie.
Yes.
It was something that when I first saw the Glass Menagerie, when I was a kid going to the Playhouse, it was one of the first plays I had seen that knocked me off my pins.
Did you see Laurette Taylor in
Yes,
the...
I did. And
Often.
yes, and it of course helped matters a great deal because Sandy Meisner, in describing her performance, was so enthusiastic, and he was not a man to lightly praise, nor was he excessive in his praise of actors, but he was so enthusiastic about her performance that all of us at the Neighborhood Playhouse ran to see that play. And I saw it 3 or 4 times, and I was dying to be in it. And of course, you know, it depends on what you play. People see you in something and you do something that is a little flamboyant, and they say, oh, that kid can do
Right.
this and nothing else. So I didn't seem the Laura type.
Yes,
but
because she's so withdrawn and so timid and so frightened. And you'd probably played parts where you seemed...
exuberant.
And confident and so forth. Just
Yes,
the opposite. So
exactly.
you probably like that challenge of playing Laura, as well as the
More
fact...
than the challenge, there was something about that character that I knew when I saw it on the stage. I knew that girl so well that I knew I could play it. And I also knew that I didn't look like I could play it, nor did I want to suddenly, you know, assume the role of a professional Laura. I didn't want to act it off stage. But anyway, I said I wanted to do it, and of course Tennessee had seen me do his play Summer and Smoke,
Right.
playing the little Angelo. And he had seen me do another play that was, of course, very different from either one of those. So he said, are you sure you want to play Laura? And I said, yes, I do. And he was very sweet about it. And when he came to see it, at the risk of sounding as though I'm bragging, he was very surprised.
and pleased.
Yes, yes, he was wonderful about it.
And that,
And the mother was played by Jo Van Fleet.
oh,
was a
yes.
wonderful
Who was-
Yes,
actor.
who
oh,
also
she was
did a
superb.
lot of Tennessee Williams material,
She was
too.
superb in the part.
Tell me a little bit about playing...
And Eli played my brother. It's the
I
first
know,
time we
I know,
played
yes.
brother and sister.
I played her father in Summer Stock. I've
Oh.
played all someday I'll play her sister. I
Every
don't know.
possible relationship. But you had 2, well, you had many, but you had 2 absolutely marvelous parts on the stage in Kilroy in Camino Real. Talk a little bit about that, because
Well,
that was an avant-garde play, really.
It certainly
and,
was.
many people think ahead of its time.
We were in the actor's studio together, and Kazan had directed The Skin of Our Teeth and wasn't happy with his direction of fantasy. So he picked a little scene from a one-act play of Williams called 10 Blocks on the Camino Real. And he wanted to just work on it as a director. And I was playing in Mr. Roberts. At night, after the show was over, 11:15, we'd meet at the actor's studio and we'd work till 1 o'clock in the morning, and he'd direct it. Then he showed it to Tennessee, and Tennessee was absolutely astounded at what Kazan had found in a fantasy sense with his scene. So he said, incidentally, they're going to do my play, The Rose Tattoo, and he should play Mangiacavallo. So that's how I got to play The Rose Tattoo.
Which, of course, is a part you won many awards for and received.
Did you ever see it?
I did, yes. It was, it was
Wasn't it
marvelous.
glorious?
That was with Maureen.
Maureen Stapleton, yes.
But
They were
anyway,
both wonderful.
Oh, just, and
I did that
you
play-
could go full out on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a
I did the
wonderful-
play for a year and 2 months or something. We toured America with it. And then when I came back to New York, I did Camino Real. So it was good.
How did you feel about being in that? Because the Rose Tattoo was so accessible, and those characters are so appealing and so earthy and so powerful, really. And Kilroy was so difficult for so many people to, and the play, Camino Real.
Well, the play, I think, is Tennessee's most poetic and beautiful. That and what's the one? The Night of the Iguana has a lot of poetry in
Yes.
it. But this play was Tennessee's fear about death and our mortality. I found it a marvelous cartoon, a nightmare dream.
It was a little surreal.
Surreal.
Yeah. A gorgeous production.
Kazan's
I think it was
a
one of
beautiful
Kazan's.
Yes, yes, I agree.
mean, all of his work is brilliant, but I thought that was a departure for him, and so lyrical and so exquisite.
I remember one line in it where I said to the man, "Gee, he said, why don't you get cleaned up? We were in somewhere below the border." And I said, "Well, I'd take a shower if I could find the why." And this man said, "What is the why?" And I said, "Well, it's like a Protestant church with a swimming pool in it."
This man, incidentally, was David J. Stewart, who was
Yes.
a close friend of ours and who was a brilliant actor, who won the Derwent Award for that performance. He was just glorious in it.
Speaking of cartoons, Rhinoceros by UNESCO, which you all were both in.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that experience and playing an avant-garde thing, this play in which people turn into rhinoceri, and what was that like? Who directed Rhinoceros?
Joe Anthony.
Wonderful.
Joseph Anthony.
Oh, surely.
He's retired now.
I know, and who actually taught with Harold Clurman at Hunter College for a good while. Yes, go
Very
ahead.
brilliant man.
We don't think of him as avant-garde or what. The play is... I had done a play called The Chairs, the UNESCO.
Which was UNESCO, which is
Yeah.
that incredible play where you fill the stage
With
with
chairs.
people through your imagination.
Exactly.
Sort of in a lighthouse.
Yes.
Yes, but go ahead.
But this play of UNESCO's, we were working with Zero.
Zero Mostel.
Yes, and a book about him is just coming out in which I said, it's strange how the force of a performance can change the message of a play. The play dealt with a man, me,
Right.
who resists becoming a rhinoceros, who resists the current, who stands up and defies people. You know, he doesn't turn
He's
into a
against
rhinoceros.
conformity,
Exactly. People came to the theater and saw a man turn into a rhinoceros.
which was Zero.
It was a wonderful scene. And Annie
I
played...
remember Walter Kerr wrote about a 2-paragraph description of the way he transformed himself, Zero, into the... But you're right, the play really is about... your character was the real hero of the play.
Now,
Oh, yes.
and I learned a valuable lesson in acting with a partner, my partner. At one point I said to Anne, "You're not going to do that, are you, in the play?" She said, "Oh, yes, I am. Oh, yes,
You
I
mean
am."
a certain thing?
A certain thing.
Yes.
Every critic pointed out that thing.
Oh, really?
And it taught me from then on never to question or doubt her selection of whatever it is, what colors she wants. It was, you remember there used to be the flapper girls, whenever they kissed, they'd lift their back leg. You know?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
So
kick it
she-
up. Yes.
She kicked up her back leg. And I thought,
And everybody...
Well, I had seen a photograph. I do a lot of my acting this way. By what really happens, what you really see. I saw a photograph of a young woman kissing a sailor with her leg up. And when Joseph Anthony was talking to me about this, the part of Daisy, he said, "You know, she's like an all-American cheerleader." Well, the cheerleader, I didn't quite know what that was.
but you knew about kissing sailors.
Yeah, yes. That's what hit my fancy. And of course, Joseph loved it. But you know, an interesting thing happened. On opening night, on my entrance, I came out and I'd do a thing with my finger of thinking, and then I'd do the pose of the leg going up, and kind of a silly kind of thing. On opening night, when I made my entrance, because it had been, you know, I had rehearsed it, and UNESCO had come to see a rehearsal, and he didn't like any of us.
Oh, really?
Didn't like Zero, he didn't like me. I think he liked
He thought they
Eli.
distorted his
He
play.
thought we distorted the play. And I got frail of heart, and I didn't do my entrance. I didn't do my entrance. And then I got so mad at myself that the next entrance I said, to hell with it. I know that this is the way I want to do it. I know this is the woman, Daisy, and I then got into gear. And Joseph came back, Joe Anthony came backstage, and he said, oh, I was so terrified. He said, when you made your entrance and you didn't do your kick, he said, I thought, oh, she's going to be so careful tonight. Safe. But I came through for myself.
Great. And from then on, I'm sure you did it on the entrance.
And then an interesting thing happened to me career-wise as an actress, because it was so definite a thing that I had done, and I did it because that's the way Zero was going, and that's the way the play was going, and Eli, I thought, was exquisite in this play. And I thought, when people were critical of what I did. Some people loved it, and some people said, well, you know, why? I mean, why did you make her a silly lady like that? And I thought, well, silly ladies would be rhinoceroses. They'd have to be kind of silly, you know. So I learned my lesson. I thought, yes, I have to now be a mature artist and say, yes, that's what I want to do, that's the way I like it, and if they don't like it, then
stick by your own choices.
Yes, exactly.
And Eli says they've been right most of the time. All the time, or?
Well, no, I say I don't criticize her anymore after Rhinoceros.
Well, Harold Clurman, for example, who was a good friend of mine, and I think liked me as much as I liked him, was very critical of the choice that I made when I did Waltz of the Toreadors, because I decided there, too, that instead of playing a conventional little lady, you know, a hausfrau who has illusions about being an opera singer, I thought that she should be one of these overly theatrical...
A real diva.
A real diva.
Now, Harold had directed the play originally on Broadway.
Yes, I know.
And had done something
I don't
quite
think he cared about our revival of it.
No, and it was my idea to wear horns, you know, like Gunhilda. So it worked, the audiences liked it, and Harold, of course, didn't care for that. But I always liked Harold an awful lot. But we used to argue about
Good. Well, he was good.
Yes,
he was a good person to argue with.
Yes.
Because you knew there was no malice in it, really. He
Never.
had tremendous respect for the art form, and so when he argued with you, it was always on aesthetic grounds, really.
Yes.
You realize that we've had a rich tapestry of work. I was playing an Oriental the following year, or a few years before that in Tea House of the August Moon.
Sakini, is that?
Sakini.
Yes.
I did it for a year in London. Then Annie and I did...
He hardly had to wear makeup. He looked so Oriental, and he was so enchanting in that. Well, that's when you had your black hair, too,
Honey,
Eli.
let's not discuss my appearance on television.
What? Your hair is beautiful.
But anyway, we had wonderful plays to do, you know.
Quite a cross-section, too.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a variety, really.
Did we ever tell you about the fights we had when we did Major Barbara?
I'm gonna hear about. I'll hear about this another time, because that's going to take a little time. I want to hear the story about Major Barbara, but I want to hear. First, I want to talk just a little bit more about this great variety of roles you've had, because you've had a lot of flamboyant roles in Waltz of the Toreadors. That's a marvelously both of you had flamboyant parts to play in that. And, but you've gone all the way from the timid sort of the Laura part that you played in Glass Menagerie and some of the other quiet parts. And you've had, as you say, the Oriental part. Do you play that in London as well as in...
Yes, I did it for a year in London.
You did?
Yes.
Don't I remember, didn't you have some story about playing that for, was it Winston Churchill or somebody?
Yes, I played it for Winston Churchill.
And how did he respond?
Well, he sat in the front row. And as a curtain, there was no curtain. I stood in front of a bamboo curtain. I bowed to the audience. I bowed this way. And then I looked straight at him. He's no more than 5 feet from me. And I bowed. I looked straight at him. And he had a hearing aid. And he went like this. And I didn't know if he turned it off or on. And for the rest of the performance, all I could think of is Churchill. And he never changed his expression like that. I guess he liked it. I don't know.
Well, but you still don't know to this day what he was doing, which way he was going with his hearing aid.
And then we played for the Queen and the Prince. She had been in office 1 year when I did the play.
Speaking of this, because both of you have played both in England and the United States, what are there differences in the audiences in terms of when you perform?
Enormous differences
What,
in the
what,
audiences.
for example?
Well,
I mean, what is the...
we did the first time, well, in Tea House of the August Moon. Eli, you tell that story about opening night when you thought, oh my gosh, they...
Well, there they had an outfit called the Gallery Guards who sat up in the balcony. If they didn't like, and particularly didn't like Americans or American plays, they would boo. So 4 nights before Pal Joey had opened, and they booed the poor actor dancer who was superb in the part. So I came out to take my curtain call thinking, if you boo, I'm going to boo right back at you. I don't know. I was terrified, and they didn't boo. But the reason they liked that play so much, it was the first time Americans didn't take themselves quite so seriously and didn't think they were going to inform the world of their brilliance.
Yes.
But Eli, may I ask
Yes.
a question? I was under the impression that they made sounds that made you think that they were negative, and instead they were positive.
Yes. They made noises, which...
So
Really?
that's
Yeah.
the
The audience
difference.
did?
Yes, that's the difference. In other words, it sounded, as I understood it, it sounded to Eli as though they were not pleased with his performance at all. And the next day, of course, you know, the newspapers in England, this was in 55, wasn't it,
54.
darling? 54. You know, you get about that much space instead of,
Yes.
you know, the space in...
Right.
We do everything much bigger than the English, as you know.
But why do you think audiences in Britain are so different from
Well,
America?
I thought they were different. When we did the
We've just got a very short time for this.
Typist and Tiger.
Short,
Yeah.
short. Have you got a short answer on this difference in the audience?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Quick, give it to me.
I think that they're still behind us in terms of...
Are they more reserved?
No, I was going to say in terms of technology. I'll explain that later.
Yes, right. And so, but in other words, there's this clear difference as far as you're concerned
Yes.
between the...
Their values are different. We played the typists. It's 2 people in an office from 9 to 5 or 9 to a lifetime. Well, Vivian Lee came backstage and she said, Annie, that's the better play, but the audience won't like that. The critics won't like it because women are still scrubbing the stone steps with a brush, and they think that an office job is quite wonderful. You know,
On that note of women's lib in the era of when the Typist and the Tiger opened, we'll have to close. I want to thank Ann Jackson and Eli Wallach for being with us. This has been the Harold Clurman Seminar on Theater. I'm Ed Wilson. Thank you for being with us.